Hey everybody, welcome to another conversation. Today I have Chris Helmers, who is VP of Sales and Client Success at Zego. And we're going to talk about the financial underpinnings of these relationships with our residents and hear their story. Because frankly, I love the backstory of companies and how they evolve with the industry. Because we're leveraging what tools that they have to propel our properties. And so I love hearing their story. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey Brent, appreciate you having us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, actually. Life is fantastic. Things going okay over there?
Absolutely. We're in full swing of fall up here in Portland, Oregon, where I live, so enjoying the cooler weather. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Zego and some property management technology.
So, what really grabs me on all this conversation is when I think about what we do at Multifamily Insiders, we put on events like Multifamily Demo Day or Webinar Wednesdays, and those are our core offerings. We want to put on an amazing event, and I frankly don't want to have to worry about collections. I don't want to worry about the process of collecting payment or whatever. That is a distraction generally for us, right? We just want to do an amazing event, provide amazing content. So I'd imagine it's most like the same for property management companies. They want to create an amazing experience for prospects walking in the door, residents. They don't want to have to worry about how they're actually collecting the rent. They just want to do what they're best at. And so I think that really goes along with how you all add value. It's taking away those distractions and making it simple for them to do amazing service. So let's talk about that, your history, and let's kind of rewind the clock just a bit. You all are some of the original innovators when it comes to these financial transactions, rent collections, and then we get into collections and utility payments, and now going forward into the reverse, where we're talking about, security deposits and getting those back out to the residents. But before we get there, I'd like to talk about the origins and hear about that piece, and then kind of walk us along how you added these different pieces along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put, Brent. And you're exactly right. We continue to hear there's fundamentally two things trying to happen within our industry. One, property managers trying to do their jobs, run the back office, run the properties, and the renters just want a quality, easy experience because it's the biggest expense they have on a monthly basis, and frankly, it's where they live. So Zego's story actually starts under a different name, a little company called Paylease that had quite the name in the industry for a really long time. Started in 2003. There's two guys. They were fresh out of college, sellers, living in San Diego, hitting the streets, knocking on doors, and they're sitting down after work one day enjoying a couple beers. And they're sitting there saying, "We're so busy. Why can't I pay my rent online?" And just like that, Paylease was born. From there, they realized that nobody actually was doing it at this time. This idea of online payments was still relatively new. The internet was still on the up and up. And when we think about renter demographics, they weren't used to paying things online to the way younger renters are today. So we fast forward a couple years, they build the platform, they launch it. We're one of the first players in the space. We move across all aspects of residential real estate. And then in 2015, we made a slight pivot and we acquired a utility management company based out of Chicago. Because if you're going to pay your largest expense, rent, digitally, why aren't you paying your second largest expense at a property digitally? Utilities. Not only about collecting that money, but also, sending it out and continuing to make that process easy for our clients and for the property operators. It's not just about having the tools, it's about making sure that they're automated in a simple way. A couple years later, we made another acquisition. We bought an IoT company called Zego, which at the time had a resident experience app, and this idea that the experience that the resident has at your property is quickly evolving out of the physical amenities and into the digital amenities. And it was a natural evolution for Paylease at the time. We have a wonderful, super strong online payments utility management platform. Why not embed it where renters are going, which is they're going mobile. They're doing everything on their phone. It was at that time we kind of picked up our heads and we're like, our core competency is online payments, but we're starting to do so much more than that. And at the time, we felt that Paylease was a little constricting. It didn't necessarily capture all the things we were doing. And we had this grand vision of the money moves on Zego. What can we do from a technology perspective that's going to help automate the flow of money in and all the money going out? So at that point, we pivoted and we had a new name. Zego was born. And it's been incredible ever since. We've focused a lot on that user experience. We know how important turnover is in reducing those costs, keeping residents happy, all while keeping the workload simple and easy for the property managers because they're constantly being tasked with more work and the resources are constantly going down. So we keep evolving. And at that point, Zego was acquired in 2021. We landed in our forever home by a company called Global Payments. Global Payments is the largest technology payments provider, frankly, across the globe. And we have a nice little niche carved out with Zego being their first foray into payments in the residential real estate world. And here we are. That's 2025. We've been growing. We've been evolving. My story with Zego started back in 2016 when we were Paylease at the time. I've had the absolute pleasure of working with some wonderful folks here, watching our company evolve, not only with the people within it, but also as a technology provider in the space, all the way to where we are now. And Brent, as you kind of called out, not to overplay our hands, but we've got some exciting things coming down the pipeline as well.
You are a unicorn for being with a technology company for coming up on 10 years now.
That's right.
My goodness, you never see that anymore. That's amazing. So let's talk about every piece of these. It's interesting because they have their own unique dynamics, right? So it's not just about a matter of accepting money or paying out money in a very simplistic. They're all the same. Each of them have their own quirks. So can you walk me through how collecting rent is different from collecting utility payments and then even collecting collections at that point? So how do these differ from a, process perspective and even the differences between each one?
Yeah, the difference, if we go backwards in time a little bit, the difference was that people were having to make multiple payments. They're paying rent over here, they're paying utilities over here, and if they're getting any money back, it's coming from a different channel. And that's, frankly, it's just not a great experience. We think about what a modern renter looks like today. A lot of folks grew up using iPhones. They definitely grew up using the internet. They don't have checking accounts or they don't have checkbooks to go ahead and write a physical check. They're used to paying everything digitally. So, and again, rent, utilities, these are the largest expenses a lot of folks have on a monthly basis. So they want that quality experience that they're getting from their banks, that they're getting from their social media apps, that they're getting everywhere else. So the real value is taking the rent payment and the utility payment and any other ancillary charges, consolidating it into one singular payment and giving them one opportunity to pay that directly to the provider. So, and it's matching how they want to pay, whether it's ACH, credit card, they want to put it on a debit card, introducing flexible payments so you can pay it in installments, or maybe you are a little, technologically adverse and you like paying your rent in cash. Well, we're going to give you that opportunity to go to 30,000 plus locations, pay your rent in cash. It's secure. We digitize the transaction, keeps the resident happy. But we always got to talk about why the property managers care. All of this data is getting integrated right back into their ERP. And of course, the money is flowing right into their accounts. So cash flow staying strong, automation staying strong, their workloads being reduced, and we're going to outsource all of any errors and challenges that they might have from a resident or from an operator perspective and put that on Zego.
If they're doing flex payments, do they pay some sort of interest charge along the way? How does that work?
Yeah, it's flexible, not to use a bad pun there, but the idea is that they get that opportunity to split it into different types of installments, and there's going to be a different fee associated with that as well. Similar if you're doing an afterpay or any other buy now, pay later service that you might be interacting with, a slew of different retailers.
Do you know, just out of curiosity, how many companies still accept physical checks? Is that still a thing anymore?
Most folks will collect a physical check. It's a good thing just to have. It's a good program to have out there. You never know. There's always going to be some level of renters who are going to want to pay that way. And it's really going to depend on the asset class. If it's a Class A high-end property filled with working professionals, high income, probably not going to see a lot of checks. If it's workforce housing, it's a more rural area, or perhaps the folks who are underbanked, those folks might still be paying rent with cash and checks. And it's who of you as a property manager to accept all different forms. Because at the end of the day, Zego, we want as many digital transactions as possible, but we understand it's actually about providing all the different ways that folks want to pay rent to their property managers.
Got it. So let's fast forward now. We've talked about these different ways to collect money, but now we're kind of shifting gears and we're going the opposite direction. So tell me about the challenges that a company might have with then sending out their security deposits once they've moved out.
Yeah. It actually goes right back to our origin story. A couple guys sitting around drinking beer saying, why can't I pay my rent online? I'll phrase it with the story that one of our sellers actually shared with me. He moved out of his apartment, and it was him and a couple buddies, and they were all on one lease, and they had to get their security deposit back. The property manager cut them a physical check weeks after they moved out with all of their names on it. And a few of the guys had actually left the state. And the problem is, our young seller had to go to the bank with all of his buddies in order to get that cash. That's not a great experience. That's not how people are getting cashed out. People are using Venmo and having that money go right into their pocket. So that's the technology we've brought into this space. Residents need that money back. They want that money back, especially here in 2025. That could be a significant amount of money that's going into them moving. It could be going into a down payment, or maybe if they're taking that step into home ownership, they have a couple $1,000s sitting on that security deposit. They want to get that as soon as possible. And of course, the process for the property operators is challenging as well. Keeping track of the money, making sure it's in the right account, making sure you write the check, hoping that the check gets to the resident if you have their address or if you haven't lost it. So all of that brings us to one of our newest tools that we call resident payouts. And Brent, it's exactly as you said, it's the opportunity to digitally refund security deposits right to the resident.
So is the community defining the methods in which they get to the resident, or is the resident defining, or is it a mix of both?
The resident gets to decide. So the short of it is the resident moves out and instantaneously they can get an email. The property manager has already gone in there and said, this is what their return will be. They had this many, maybe they chipped some paint. So they're going to put all that together in a SOTA document. We're going to put it into our payouts tool, and then the renter receives an email. And the resident can say, well, I do want a physical check because maybe that's the cheapest option. Or maybe they're like, I'm moving, I need it sent to my bank account, so let's do an ACH transfer. It takes a couple of days, maybe a little bit higher of a fee. Or maybe it's in high demand and you're like, I need that money now, here, as soon as possible. And we can do an instant refund, an electronic payment with a little bit higher fee as well. So whichever way you want to do it, it's always going to be automated for the property manager while giving residents the opportunity to select what's most convenient for them, that's best for their budget, and abide by where they're trying to go after they move out.
I'd imagine that, if you're issuing physical checks and a check gets lost in the mail, well, you have 30 days to get it to them. It's not getting to them in time. Then suddenly there's a legal ramification of not getting that, where it's out of your control. You have lost control of the situation by putting it into the mail system at this point, because the mail system is a little, who knows what's going to happen there. So then it becomes, you have better documentation, I would imagine, also kind of loss or risk aversion at that point.
Absolutely. And you hit on a great thing that not only with rental payments, utility management, and of course, security deposits, regulations are changing fast and aggressively across our country. We'll see something bubble up in a specific state, and then slowly it gets adopted elsewhere. So, and as these regulations are arising, we're hearing and noticing that a lot of our clients and folks out there in the industry are looking for technology to help them guide it. So, and not only the technology, they're actually looking for a partnership. So when somebody reaches out to Zego, they're expecting to get a little bit of guidance. Again, whether it's regulations around rent payment, utility management, or issuing out those security deposits, making sure you're staying compliant is critical. One bad lawsuit can be irreparably dangerous for your properties and for your portfolio.
You had mentioned some people are unbanked and that's why they pay rent in a certain way. So what happens if they're unbanked and you're trying to issue their security deposit?
The best way, well, they would still be able to get a check in some capacity and go ahead and receive that and go get it cashed out. That'd probably be the best way for them. Or in situations like that, maybe technology is not the answer. Maybe they're actually relying on getting in front of their property manager and saying, hey, these methods you've sent me aren't the right way. And to be clear, this product is really just a tool. We don't go into our clients and say, you have to use this process now. This is saying, hey, if you're looking to automate 50 to 75% of your returns, this is going to get you there. And the other 25%, which is always going to be a challenge, that's up to you.
Very cool. So I always like to talk about the past, present, and then future. Anything going on in the future that we should know about?
Yeah, one I'm super excited about, and it ties back into the experience. So we really started our experience journey with our mobile app and consolidating all those key touch points into one location. And the future, what we're looking at that we're inches from going live on, is a rewards program. 70% of renters have never received a reward, but 100% of times I go to the coffee shop, I get a couple stars, I get a couple points, and after enough times, I actually get a free cup of coffee. Why isn't that experience widespread throughout property management? So the simple idea is if a property manager chooses to incentivize a certain behavior, like paying their rent online, they can actually issue points. And then those points can over time be turned into various things, especially like a discount. The biggest thing that renters are asking and looking for is rent concessions. We don't need toys, we don't need trinkets, we need cash back in our pockets because times are tight right now. A rewards program not only kind of gamifies the living experience and creates an attachment and engagement with your property's brand, but it creates a tool and a vehicle to get those discounts back into the pockets of your renters while incentivizing that right behavior. So right now it's pretty focused to how they might pay rent online, but we've got some pretty big plans down the road of other behaviors that we can help incentivize. But you'll have to have me back next year to hear more about that.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, when you think about credit card commercials, one of the biggest topics is cashback, so I think that that's going to resonate, especially from of course, apartment residents, there's huge differences in demographics, and some may definitely appreciate some other types of non-monetary benefits, but I would imagine a lot of them, offering some sort of cashback is fantastic.
Everybody loves cash back.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing the story of Zego, and even before that, Payless. It was wonderful hearing that. And everybody, thank you all for joining us today. It was great having you all here with our discussion with Chris Helmers, who is VP of Sales and Client Success at Zego. Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brent. It was a pleasure. We'll be back soon. Take care.